Bear with me. All right. Well, today I want to welcome Tishka Smith. She is an amazing photographer. Her work is going to be featured this January in Consequence on our online edition. She is a Philadelphia-based photographer, writer, curator, cultural content creator, and art consultant. She uses many tools at her disposal to challenge and disrupt the status quo. Her community-based artistic practice interrogates racism and classism and placemaking and civic identity formation, how neighborhood level memories and values are shaped in the ways in which the marginalization of people and ideas adversely affects American life and culture. Her photographs have been featured online in galleries, museums, other community spaces, all over the East Coast, in the Midwest, and also featured in a number of private and public collections. And one day I hope my personal collection as well. So,
I love
so,
that.
uh, we'll get started. Just have a couple of questions. So your work centers around documenting people and the neighborhoods that they live in. Can you just tell us a little bit about how did you come to practice photography? And then what led you to focus on the themes that you work with?
So let me just start by saying, April, thank you, and to the editorial staff of Consequence Forum for featuring my work and for arranging this interview. I'm really thrilled and excited to be featured and just really grateful. And so let me just start by saying that photography is my second career. I had a whole career of fundraising, grants development, program development, and later program evaluation in the nonprofit sector. And I think when I was reflecting on this question, my interest in neighborhoods and neighborhood change kind of was sparked during my time at a nonprofit in St. Louis. And I was their corporate grant writer, and they were looking to shift their focus toward more of a sort of let's bring all of our services to bear on one single neighborhood. They'd been doing work in a neighborhood in St. Louis for years and years and years, but they realized that it needed more support. And so they kind of charged me with doing a lot of research and investigating like community development strategies and principles, best practices. And so I came to photography with that sort of background and that sort of lexicon, I guess you could call it. And so when I came to the East Coast, I relocated from the Midwest, and I got here and I was just like, wow, sticker shock, like, holy crap, this is expensive as heck. And I started questioning, like, what am I actually getting for my dollar being here? What am I getting?
Mm-hmm.
And, once I kind of got settled, I had a job in New York City and, doing sort of continuing the work that I had been doing in St. Louis. And that came to an end. They wanted to shift me into another operational focus at the nonprofit I was working at. I was like, I don't think I want to do this anymore. And so I left and I decided, you know what? I want a more creative life. I want a life that I can really feel like I'm being a part of this conversation rather than kind of observing and just kind of commenting through writing and things like that. I wanted to be more in action. So I bought a camera. It wasn't my first. My love for photography goes back to when I was in like 8th grade. And my dad was a hobbyist. He is a hobbyist. And I watched him with his camera. I got my first camera, film camera, in 8th grade. And I always was the person kind of taking pictures at like school events and things like that, just, playing around. And I realized that I really never lost the love for photography. And so I bought my first DSLR, Nikon DSLR, the camera I still work with to this day. This was back in 2010. And I set out to actually document New York City subway stations. I was like, oh, this will be fun. You know, I rode the subway back and forth to work, and I really loved like the pace of everything. And I wanted to do some work that centered those spaces. But I realized that I like people more. I
Mm.
like people more. And so I wanted to really kind of explore how people negotiated space, how they negotiated each other in space. And before I got to Philly, I spent some time documenting life in Jersey City, where I lived, and all the New York boroughs except Staten Island. And I noticed that, you know, some people had an easy time navigating space and some people didn't.
Mhm.
And I wanted to understand why when I got to Philly. Like, I really wanted to understand why were spaces set up the way that they were, and how people's resilience, despite some of the flaws in spaces, some of the intent that may not have been up and up in spaces, why, you know, how people develop resilience despite those challenges. So that is kind of the backstory of how I came to the practice.
That
Yeah.
is that's really fascinating. I was like, folks, this is why you have a conversation. Uh but yeah,
Yeah.
really interesting that, you know, your background in like community organizing and nonprofit sphere, working with communities, that informs
Hmm.
your work
Hmm.
now and today. So
Yeah.
it's really cool.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. My next question is, and I'm gonna show a couple once you get into the answer of this, but for January's Consequence, our online feature, we will show some of your work from the SWULL project. And I believe SWULL stands for Stand with Ukraine Listening Loom.
That's right.
So can you just tell us a little bit about this project, how you got involved with this particular project? And I'm gonna see if I can share some images. Um,
Okay. So you want me to just jump into it?
yes, yeah, I'm sorry. Yes,
Okay.
yes.
The Stand with Ukraine Listening Loom has an interesting backstory. So not sure how much you had a chance to kind of read about the origin of it. So my colleague Catherine Panapacker is a Philadelphia-based fiber textile artist. She's a muralist, and she calls herself an artist uplifter.
Mm,
And she and I actually kind of overlapped our time together in the Germantown community in Northwest Philly. And I had admired her work from afar. She does a lot of like pop up textile installations throughout the city, just very simple, but very elegant and impactful and powerful. And I came across one of her installations, her shag installations in North Philadelphia, and I was working on a project there. And I was like, man, I need to find out who this is. And I did some research and I finally found out who she was, and we connected, stayed in touch, kind of like moved in the same spaces. And so in 2022, I I was working with this organization called Networks for Training and Development Incorporated. And their mission was kind of shifting. And during the pandemic, they kind of brought me on to do some projects with them at the intersection of art and social justice. I've had a long association with them over the years. And during the pandemic, they were like, Tishka, you know, you want to work with us on some things? So we did. And in 2022, you know, the same question came around, what do you want to do with us? And I was like, man, I really want to work with Catherine. So I reached out to Catherine, and I was like, hey, you know, what's up? What you up to? Kind of did some research on her, found out that she had been working throughout the pandemic. Like, she was out there on the streets because she takes her studio practice out to the streets. And that's kind of the basis of the listening loom model. She takes
mm,
her loom out to the streets, and she weaves and engages with people kind of going about their day. And during the pandemic, she realized there was a way to connect with people who were dealing with isolation and loss and all the things associated with the pandemic that we all kind of went through. And so I said, hey, you know, I really love this listening loom, concept that you've been developing. I would love to collaborate with you. And Networks is interested in funding some kind of project. And would you be willing to go on board? Would you be willing to get on board to do something? She's like, yeah, yeah. And this was right after the announcement. Well, in February 2022, Russia invaded Ukraine and, escalated this like long simmering conflict between the two countries. And as everyone knows, it kind of escalated into a full-blown war. And I said, yeah, what would you like to explore using this listening loom project, concept? And she was like, yeah, I want to explore what's happening in the Ukraine. And I said, word, let's do it. So we got together, kind of shaped the idea, and Networks funded it. They funded 2 phases of the work. The first phase was planning and sort of research and location scouting. I was able to build a team. I was kind of like, I'll be the project manager. And so with that, I kind of built a team of people. We had a project coordinator, we had a translator interpreter, we had a project consultant with ties to Ukraine community. And after about 3 months of planning, we launched the project in September of 2022 at Gifford Playground in the Somerton neighborhood in the far northeast of Philadelphia. And, it was really interesting because if you know the Northeast, it's kind of remote, it's hard to get to, but there's a lot of community there. It's kind of like insulated and kind of self-contained. And we found out that a lot of Ukrainians who were resettling as a result of the war in Philly were going up to those neighborhoods, Somerton, Bustleton, and so on and so forth. And so we were like, okay, so we want to go where they are. Mm-hmm. And Melanie Minkovich, who was our project coordinator, identified Gifford Playground as a potential site. So we went up there and kind of scouted everything. And I was like, they're right next door to a school. This is going to be cool, right? And talked to the person who manages the playground and the rec center, and got his commitment and got his, willingness to work with us. And we launched this project as a 6-week installation / community engagement project. Catherine did the weaving and the engaging, and I did the documentation and project management. And so we wanted to create a welcoming space for Ukrainians who were resettling in that neighborhood. We wanted to reference cultural touch points that they would recognize and feel like, oh, they get us. They understand us. They're welcoming us. They respect us. And so everything that we did in the way of branding this project was out of a respect and love for the Ukrainians who were coming into this neighborhood. So, with the help of our consultant, we wanted to get every detail right. And so the image on screen is actually the shag flag that Catherine created as a part of the project. Mm-hmm. And she has a whole ritual, and the project incorporates ritual and conversation and intentional listening to really just hold space for the Ukrainian community and the community at large who was experiencing this rapid change. And so she would invite people in to write messages on strips of cloth and attach them to the flag. And by the end, this flag that you see on screen was covered with messages. Mm. And it was a very beautiful thing. And so what we have on screen is a brother, a couple of brothers, one older, one younger, who had attached a message onto the flag. And so we had lots of that happening, and just a visual way to kind of demonstrate community and solidarity. And it was just very, very, very nice and it just really moved my heart to see a community kind of coalesce like that. And we just had all these kinds of moments throughout the 6 weeks.
Yeah.
So
that's really awesome. It's really cool. I'm seeing a little Cyrillic. So yeah, it's just like this beautiful mix of like English language and
Mm-hmm.
Cyrillic, and
Mm-hmm.
so that's really great. It's also very cool. I just love um I know this is the case. It's always a topic of discussion whenever any like public art projects happen where I am in Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
But just the involvement of community. This is for a community, and just how intentional you and your collaborators were about um going into this space, you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
whether it was for everything was done very like intentionally, deliberately for that community. So,
Yeah.
yes, so
It
that's
was really like when you speak about intentionality, like we understood, Catherine and I understood, hey, we're not Ukrainian.
mm,
We're also not a part of this community. And what we don't want to do is just kind of, the term parachute in and do
yes,
this work and then
right.
like bounce. We didn't want to do that. So we were very intentional about making sure people understood that this was a labor of love, and it was such that people were like, "Are you leaving? You can't leave. You mean it's your last day?" Like we ended the 6 weeks with a drumming circle, and our friend Karen Smith came out. She drummed. She had all of her gear with her, and the kids participated. The adults participated. It was a really nice ending to us to the 6 weeks, and we hosted a community dinner. And we had people come in of Ukrainian descent who were artists and performers, and they performed and showed their art. It was just so beautiful. And we wanted to center the Ukrainian community within this larger community so that they understood, we see you, we
Mhm,
understand what you're going through. We want to hold space for you, and we want to make sure you understand that however long you're here,
mhm,
Philly cares about you.
mhm,
And we wanted to make sure that we listened to what they were saying about, okay, what do we need and how can we help? Catherine really emphasized that those questions were so important to ask. How can we help? What do you need? So on and so forth.
mhm,
And throughout the project, people were saying, we really would love ESL classes.
mm,
And because many of the classes were kind of out of the way, needed a couple bus rides to get to, or either they were not free. And so that was one of the things that we wanted to leave behind. We wanted to leave behind some kind of resource for them to get ESL support. Um, but that's another question
yeah, no,
in terms
actually,
of
I think
impact.
no, and that's awesome. I think that is so I mean, I think that's like the hope of anyone who does community art, is that it has a lasting impact.
Yes.
That you have this artwork there, but it also leaves behind something else. The work continues after you leave, right?
Yeah.
And
Hmm.
that was kind of my next question, was like, what
Yeah.
do you think the community impact was? And
Yeah.
that was amazing. So
Yeah.
what do you want? What do you need? You need language classes, and
Yes.
it facilitated that. It created that space to get
Yeah.
more resources there. So that's very,
Yeah.
very
Yeah. And it was really interesting how everything kind of lined up.
mm,
Um, and it lined up in part because of the support that we received from networks. They were very generous funders, and our liaison, Rosa McAllister, was a wonderful resource and just a cheerleader, and wanted to make sure that we captured the full breadth of opportunity. So, in addition to the ESL classes that they helped us pilot there, and Melanie, who was our project coordinator, she stepped in because she was the ESL teacher. Also, she stepped in and ran those classes like a champ.
mm,
And and so we hosted a series of community conversations after that, where we all came to the space again, had pizza, had conversation, and talked about Gifford's past, present, and future, and asked the community, what do you see? What do you envision Gifford's future looking like? And a lot came out of those conversations that kind of dovetailed with Gifford's work on, really kind of reinvigorating the space. And they pitched their soccer field again with some funding from the city. It's just a whole lot of things that they were able to do that aligned with what the community wanted. So that was really, really, really nice for that to happen.
Yeah.
Um, and then we were able to present to different audiences, kind of lessons learned about the project. We went to Hawaii and presented at a conference on diversity, and we actually staged another listening loom pop up. And then we presented online at an international listening conference that summer as well. So there's a lot of impact, but the biggest impact that I think will last beyond all of this is we were invited to submit a chapter on SWULL, and it's going to be part of a book of restorative art practices. And it's going to be released in 2025. And we're really excited about that because we're able to show how important it is for artists to really have that intentional listening skill in their toolbox. Like, come to listen, don't come to prescribe, don't come to kind of force the way things are going to happen, have an intent, but also listen to what the community wants and needs. And
Mhm.
so really excited about that. We co-wrote that chapter. I contributed photography, and hopefully it will, the impact of this work will reach so many practitioners who will ask, how can I be a better listener? You
Absolutely.
know? Yeah.
Yeah, and just be inspirational to other people who do this work. And again,
Just turn my
you were saying about how so much of the practice is listening, and figuring out what does the community want and not imposing what you feel like they need onto it. And
right.
it reminds me of a quote that I bring up a lot whenever I'm doing community work, but I always butcher this quote, but it kind of goes to the effect of like, if you've come to help me, you're wasting your time. But if you realize that your liberation is bound in mine, let's work together, So
Yes.
that's it. That's it.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a really like powerful um experience for me, because it was literally in a space where I didn't really spend a lot of time, didn't have a whole lot of reason to be up there. And certainly being non-Ukrainian, it's kind of like, what
Mhm.
is a Black woman doing up in the Northeast, number one?
Yeah.
And, moving around all these different nationalities represented. One of the things I wanted to mention is that we brought in a map. It was a big map of the world.
Mhm.
And we invited our friends, we called the people who engaged with the installation our friends. And we invited our friends to pin on the map their home country. And after a while, all these pins, right?
Yeah.
All like dozens and dozens of countries represented in that space. And we started calling it the United Nations, um, because there's so many languages represented, so many cultures represented, so many countries represented. Um, and it really dawned on me that what you said, we're all bound up together in this quest to liberate ourselves. And if we're not focused on helping others liberate themselves, then what are we doing? What are we really doing? So having that awareness through that mapping component
Mhm.
really, really underscored the importance of really listening and just trying to figure out who are we engaging with?
Mhm.
Who are these people? What are the stories? And that alone, along with everything else, really sparked a lot of conversation.
Yeah, yeah. And that you actually answered one of the other questions. It's just about like some of the subjects you portrayed, like
Mm-hmm.
the people that you worked with for this project. I love this picture, and I believe she's a master weaver. I can't recall her
Yes.
name, um
Yes.
who
Yes.
um worked with this project, but I love that. Um, yeah, just you like you said, so many people from different walks of life, different backgrounds came to contribute to this project. Because I mean, war and displacement. I mean, unfortunately a universal experience for so, for it's an experience that happens to so many, even within this country, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, yeah. So
So on screen is Vera Nakonechny, and
mhm,
she's Ukrainian, and she knew Catherine.
mhm,
Catherine and she kind of crossed paths over the years, and what we wanted to do was bring in Ukrainian artists and center them during Philadelphia Open Studio tours at the end of October. And so this photograph is of Vera and some of her beautiful work at the Gifford Playground, and we wanted to make sure that we documented her presence there. And she brought in her loom. Like, I'm talking about a big,
yeah,
I mean, it was like a huge loom, and people were fascinated. And she would, kind of invite people in to say, want to give this a try. And she's just really, really just a gracious, kind, obviously proficient, and also, dynamic weaver and artist. Um, so this was one of the artists that we brought in. We brought in another woman who made these sort of postcards, um, and out of collages, like she cut up magazines and other different elements to kind of like tell these stories in these very, very, very small works of art. And we featured her, and she kind of did like some demos with that. So during Philadelphia Open Studio tours, we wanted to open up the space and invite people in to see this is what we were doing. And so I
mhm,
displayed my work, Catherine displayed her work at the playground, and we converted it to like a pop up, gallery space, and it was really fun. So this is what this portrait represents that time.
yeah, that's great. Well, that's really
Yeah.
yeah, it's also nice too. It's this little interplay between the Loom, which is this like very collaborative project that you're doing with the community and this tradition,
Yeah.
it kind of stems from this Ukrainian tradition of intricate pattern making and
Yes.
yeah, so it's really
And she, like all the stuff that she had on, the vest and the blouse, woven,
mm,
she did that. That was, this was her, the mastery that was on display, the color, the vibrancy, and just her being a warm, gracious, beautiful person, and also just very passionate about, what was going on with her native country.
sure.
She was the perfect one, just so perfect in the way of who are we going to center? We want to center someone like this.
Yes.
So yeah,
Yeah. Awesome.
I'm going to turn my light back on. My little ring light just shut off accidentally. I'm sorry.
Oh, no
Uh,
worries. I need to get professional.
okay,
One of those
here we
myself.
go. Here we
So,
go.
um, I'm gonna just kind of skip forward a little bit
Hmm.
and ask you when you photograph, and I want to also see if I can screen share to your website and just kind of talk a little bit about beyond the SWULL project, talk
Hmm.
about some of the other work that you do. Let's see if we can. I love this is a black and white of the SWULL project. But you when you photograph someone, so when you go out with your camera, like what
Hmm.
how do these photographs come about? Are you like looking like do you have a narrative in mind or a story that you want to tell? Like I'm gonna go out on a shoot today, or does it just like emerge and reveal itself to you? So like is it just like by happen chance you find like subjects or, like how do you capture these subjects?
Well, as I was thinking about the questions, it's really both and.
Mhm,
So for me, I'm very intentional if I have a commission that I have to work on. And what I'll do is consult with, the folks who hire me and, kind of dig in to say, who should I feature in this work? And then go from there. But if I'm out kind of just documenting, I am really just attuned to moments,
mhm,
and it's really moments, not really people. because I'm really interested in the moments where people engage with each other and with space. And some of the photographs that you're kind of going through right now document my time in Germantown, which is in the northwest section of Philadelphia. It predates actually Philadelphia itself. It was once a borough that was settled by German Quakers and Mennonites in the early, well, it was actually the late 17th century. And so very, very, just independent, self-sufficient. And with the act of consolidation in 1851, where Philadelphia brought in all these boroughs because there was like all kinds of like criminal stuff going on where
Yeah.
criminals found a way to evade Philadelphia police by slipping past the borders and going into different boroughs. So they were like, oh, we stopping all this. So they constructed this act of consolidation. They brought all these boroughs under the city of Philadelphia. And so Germantown and other sections and boroughs became neighborhoods. And so I landed in Philadelphia in 2011 and landed in Germantown specifically. And I wanted to understand it better. So I got involved. So I became a part of a group called the Germantown Artists Roundtable. I joined the board of some other organizations. And because I was fairly new to photography, I really wanted to hone my skills. So I just went out every day and just photograph,
Yeah.
in a way
Yeah.
to get to know in a way to get to learn the neighborhood, and also um, to begin to kind of piece together, what is this neighborhood? What is it all about? Why is it
Mhm.
important? Why are people so passionate about what's happening? And the neighborhood was kind of late to gentrification, but there was this sort of like undercurrent of concern that there was going to be this wave of redevelopment and gentrification, and people were
Mhm.
going to get pushed out. And the boundaries within the neighborhood are pretty stark. So Germantown Avenue divides the neighborhood into West and East Germantown. And Germantown is a majority Black neighborhood now. It wasn't always that way, but with white flight, it became majority Black. And because when Black folks, wherever we go,
Mhm.
we really, imbue upon the space our own identity. So people feel really strongly about being from Germantown and some of the subsections of Germantown, Happy Hollow, Brickyard, so on and so forth. But people were really concerned that a very small subsection of West Germantown was kind of imposing its will on the entire neighborhood. So I wanted to investigate that as well. And what ended up happening is after about a couple of years of documentation, I was invited to my first solo show
Mm.
in the neighborhood. And what I wanted to do was bring in scenes and moments and people who weren't at these tables making decisions. And
Mm.
that really like sparked the conversation. Who are we leaving out when we decide to build over here or demolish over here? What's the impact of taking away shared space from people who've been here, a long time, born and raised and gonna die in Germantown? What's the impact? Um, so yeah, so Germantown was like my training ground. It was my training ground. And a lot of the photographs that are on my website are representative of my time there.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's actually me.
Oh, is that
That's actually me
Oh,
sitting on a porch. And I was like, oh, it's reflecting, kind of
yeah.
the architectural
Uh,
style of the housing stock
yeah, the
in parts of
neighborhood.
Germantown. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that's a great photograph. Yeah, and this is really interesting because there's um so many parallels, right, between what we experience, what happens here, in the United States in terms of displacement, gentrification, and then something that happens all, way across. So, you like in Ukraine, the sense of
Yeah.
displacement and
Yeah.
really, another power try to take over the territory of another.
Yeah.
So really some parallel stories, and this is kind of interesting. Like as we talk through it, I'm like seeing this like larger story emerge. So
Hmm.
that's really, yeah, that's really really interesting. So I'm gonna ask, there's a Nina Simone quote that I refer to often, where she says, the duty of art is to reflect the times. And I definitely feel that about your work, for sure. Definitely in terms of displacement and gentrification and holding space for people, new Americans or people who are here because of, you know, war. And
War. Hmm. All
so
kinds of different reasons, right?
all sorts of different reasons. Yes, yes. So what would you say is the most important thing that artists can do during a time of war and political unrest?
You know what? It's not, my answer is not going to be what people expect.
Oh, I'm here for it. Okay.
um, so like the best thing, there are a couple things we could do as artists. So take care of yourself. You
Mm,
know, if you're anywhere operating or working around the fringes of this space of unrest and war and neighborhood change, or you know, examining questions of space, who owns it, who gets to decide, blah blah blah, you gotta build in time for rest. And you know, you need to have other interests
mm,
and friends who can help you
mm,
unplug. One of the things that I learned over the last 14 years is if you don't have friends who can help you unplug, because we find ourselves in community with artists who are doing similar work, and that becomes sort of the thing that we talk about. It
mm.
can
Ad
really, like,
nauseum.
there's yeah, you can really feel like where is the boundary,
Mm,
right? Where's the boundary? And you got to have folks that don't really want to engage around your art or your practice or your philosophy, and just say, let's go to a movie, let's do something silly, let's
mhm,
do something fun. It's really, it's one of the really important things that you can do, right? War is going to be there, political unrest is going to be there, it ain't going nowhere, it's been there for as long as we, you know, humanity has existed on this earth.
Facts.
And so I you know, it's not like you take a break, it's, war is going to keep waging,
Mm,
right? Because these are forces that are much bigger than any of us individuals. So, and there are a lot of like, you know, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of like interrogate war and political unrest and who has interests and so on and so forth. So it's a 24/7, 365 thing. You check out for a week or a month
mhm.
or even a year. The word's going to be there when you get back. There's something about war and conflict that people, we have to have it. And in some cases it's a way to work out our problems, but for some people it's just a sport, right? And so if you take a break and you check out for a while and you come back, it's still gonna be some war, it's still gonna be some political unrest, it's still gonna be some conflict, and you can just get back into it. But if you're not taking care of yourself,
Mm,
you can't be good to anybody.
mm,
Not your community, not the folks that you're engaging around these questions. You're not going to be good to anybody. So that's number one. And the other thing that I'll say is if you haven't had any formal training on trauma informed practice,
mhm,
then I strongly advise doing that. I just completed 20 hours of training for teaching artists around trauma and how to incorporate evidence-based trauma informed, you know, strategies in our practice and working with communities. And I'm gonna tell you, it really deepened my understanding and gave me some really great tools with, you know, for how to connect with young people, people of all ages, because when you understand how trauma, you know, impacts the brain, and then how it impacts our thoughts and our behaviors, and it makes us as teaching artists more effective in working with communities. And even if you're not teaching, if you have a community-based practice, you need to understand trauma, because these communities are impacted by traumatic events. And so if you can find a way to get some training, please do that.
Mhm.
Please do that. Yeah. So those two things. Get some rest, unplug if you have to, and get that training that grounds you in trauma-informed practice.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, and it's so true. You said war is gonna be there when you get back. It is so true. I mean, it's like they say, freedom and, by extension, justice, everywhere. It's a constant struggle.
Yes.
So you'll forever be fighting, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, it's
It's
true. It's true. It's
very true.
a good reminder to, find moments of joy and take care of yourself in between. In
That
between.
part.
Mhm.
Yes.
Absolutely. We're gonna wrap up
Okay.
very shortly. So last question for you.
Yes.
Is there one project that you are most proud of?
It's like asking to pick which one of your children are the
I
favorite.
know, I know. You know what? In retrospect, that was a terrible question.
No, 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 no.
It was. No, that's totally fair. Tell me about what about because that is tough. It's kinda like I get that question all the time. Tell me what's your most favorite work? And I'm like, come on.
Can't
So
choose.
tell me what is all right, let me see if I can reframe this. What is a project that you still this is probably also a terrible question. What is a project that you still think about? Like, I won't say haunt you, but it's one that like stays and sticks with you. Like you get up in the morning, like, oh yeah, that 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 series, or I'm not
Mm,
finished with it, or you know what I mean, I need to revisit, or I did the thing. I don't know. Like what is there a
yeah.
project that like you
Well, now that you reframe it that way. So I did a project in 2015 called Racism is a Sickness. Hashtag racism is a sickness.
Mhm.
Ooh, that project, it really it introduced me to the anti-racism space,
Mhm.
which obviously I explore themes of race and class as it intersects with placemaking, but like getting into the space, like, whoo, it was a journey. So the the just for context, so I decided to create this series of photographs of 14 Philadelphians wearing surgical masks behind an upside down flag as a
Mhm.
statement against what I saw was the pending danger zone we were entering in
Mhm.
2015, 2016. There was a lot of police brutality, kind of like every turn you would hear about something. But the one thing that really pissed me off to the point where I was like, I got to jump in here,
Mhm.
was the situation in Texas with a young lady by the name of Dejera Becton. And I don't know if you remember it, there's a video that went viral of her being tackled by a police officer in this very compromising situation during a pool party. And she was only like 14, 15 years old, being tackled by this grown man. And
Oh yeah, I
I
remember.
was just like,
Mhm.
oh, hell no. Can I say
Mhm.
hell? Is it okay?
That's fine.
Uh, I was like, hell to the no. That was my breaking point. So
Mhm.
from there, I did sort of this pop up thing at my home in Germantown where I was protesting what happened to her and standing in solidarity with that community and just talking to my neighbors about what do y'all think what do y'all think about what's going on, what do you think. And it was really interesting to hear my neighbors open up about it, and I wanted to explore that a little bit more. I really wanted to talk to white people
Mhm.
about their take on police brutality, what they had seen and heard in their upbringing around race. And my theory was that racism was like this invisible virus and
Mm,
it infects us all.
mhm,
And the surgical mask with the word that they chose to write on it was the thing that they struggled with the most as it related to racism.
mm,
And this portrait series became a flashpoint, really challenging people to think about what has race done to our mindset and culture as Americans, and do we really feel like this is like unhealthy? Like, what are we doing to protect ourselves, change the way we're thinking? And since the project, this was 2016 when it was exhibited in 3 venues in Philly, talked to hundreds of people, got some veterans mad. They were mad about the flag being upside down. And I was like, this country is in trouble. There's something wrong. There's something really, really wrong. And there's been a lot wrong, but this is like another step of like
mhm,
problematic behavior that's really being rewarded.
mm.
Not in the way that we think, because every time a police officer does something wrong, what happens? Taxpayers have to pay for them to go on leave,
A
or
paid
there's some
leave
kind
of
of
absence, right?
paid leave of absence, or they settle to
Mhm,
have them taken off, and then you find out they find a job somewhere else. And so the insidiousness of that also was explored. Um, but I am planning to do a reboot of that project. It's been 10 years. And so I'm hoping to be able to come back to that project 10 years later, do interviews with the original 14 folks, if I can find them, and ask them, it's been 10 years, a lot has happened.
yeah,
What's what,
what are your thoughts now? That
what are
should
your thoughts?
be so
Yeah,
interesting, so interesting.
yeah,
Please, 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 please keep me posted,
I will.
on
I
on
will.
that project. I would, yeah, I'd be very,
Yeah.
I'm invested.
So that is the project that really, it took me out of my comfort zone, because I
Mhm,
had to really just sit down and talk about something very personal to all of us.
mhm,
I was doing more studio based work, and I was really kind of like new and nervous to that. Because I'm out and I do street and documentary. I'm out and I kind of work with the light that's there. But in that situation, I had to control. And so I was learning. And a lot of people were not happy with what I did. They were like, I don't know about this. Racism is a sickness. What do you mean? And it predated the pandemic, when we were all wearing masks, all
mhm,
dealing with George Floyd and everyone else who had suffered at the hands of the police. Whether you feel they're guilty or not is irrelevant. What happens when police authority goes unchecked? Are we willing to contend with these questions? And politically, what was happening that kind of was bubbling underneath the surface that has now become a whole thing. I'm not going to say any names, but I am going to say that it is part of the equation. It definitely was part of my equation when I was doing the project.
mhm, mhm,
So that is one project that I'm just like, I gotta, I want to really get back into that. I think I was on to something then. 10 years later, it's really borne out to be
mhm,
true.
mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's a continuing, project. Also, yeah, yeah, please, please, please let me know. I'll read
Okay.
that, yeah, please let me know.
I
Um,
definitely
I'm
will.
I'm really excited, to yeah, see what people's reflections are years later.
Yeah.
But you have a really exciting, project announcement in queue. Would you mind?
I do. So, in the midst of all the other things that I've been doing, I have been so honored and privileged to serve as the official event photographer for the Philadelphia Juneteenth Festival in Germantown. I connected with the executive director, Connie Swinson. She runs the Johnson House Historic Site in Germantown. It's one of the few intact Underground Railroad spaces in Philly. It's open as a house museum, has tours. And one of the things she does as part of its mission is to organize this festival. So in 2015, she said, I want you to photograph this, help me document it. So I was like, sure, okay, fine. So fast forward to 2021, after Juneteenth was signed, was made into a federal holiday. When
Mhm,
Joe Biden signed it into law, it was a really great experience. And so I started thinking, wouldn't it be cool to go back to this body of work and organize an exhibit? So they invited me to curate 7 years of my work into an exhibit. That exhibit opened up last September. And then when I announced that on social media, people were like, "Where is there gonna be a book?" And I'm like, yeah, I guess.
Oh,
Hadn't been thinking about it because I
mhm.
was like, I'm not really, I don't know if I can do a catalog type, publication. But I wanted to make this personal. I wanted to tell a story that connects Germantown to the birth of Juneteenth, Galveston, Texas. And
Mm,
there is a through line.
yes.
And so the book is called Compositions of Black Joy,
Mhm.
a visual chronicle of the Philadelphia Juneteenth Festival from 2015 to 2022. And it's coming out in February of 2025. And it has most of the photographs from the exhibit, plus archival photographs going back to Houston, Texas, Richmond, Virginia, 20th century Philadelphia, just kind of tracing the through line between my work and earlier work that documented Freedom Day celebrations, Emancipation Day celebrations, so on and so forth. And really just highlighting the growth of the festival and also how it celebrates Black families, Black activism, centers Black commerce and entrepreneurship, and the work that it's doing as an institution to bring people together in a site of jubilation, of joy, of resistance every single year. And so I'm really, really excited about that book. It's been a labor of love. We are getting ready to get it to print. And I would love if people pre-order the copy.
Absolutely. Where can we get it?
So if you go to my website, well, not my website, but the book's website is compositionsofblackjoy.com. And there's a link there to get to the pre-order page, and you can watch videos and look at photographs, kind of explaining the genesis of the book and of the exhibit and what I'm planning to do. And yeah, learn more about the project itself. So
Wonderful.
yeah, yeah,
Wonderful. Yeah. Well, congratulations. And so for everyone tuning in, thank you so much for spending some time with us both to have this conversation. Please, we've only covered a small fraction of Tishka's body of work. So please go to the website. Make sure we have the links, and also please make sure you pre-order the book and
yes,
enjoy the photos, which I think for a publication that is consequences obviously about war and geopolitical violence, it is so beautiful to highlight some pictures that talk about talk about joy and community and listening and hope and talking about the future and moving forward
yeah,
and
yeah,
improving communities through art. So this
yeah,
has been, it's been a real pleasure. So thank you so much for your time, and thanks to everybody who listened and rocked with us today. So thanks so
yes.
much.
Thank you so much. So glad to be here. Thank you, April.